But let's get to the breakdown of the fight. Ayman, starting with you, because I've already kind of shown my hand to an extent here. Who do you make the early favourite? And who do you think the bookies will have favourite?
I think you've got to go with Tyson Fury as the early favourite in this fight, just in terms of him kind of... Look, Tyson, he's shown the strings in his bow, and he's passed every single test that you'd want to see from someone who has that pound-for-pound stature or someone who's looking to claim an undisputed crown. He's someone who's taken a heavy whack, the heaviest whack you can take in all of boxing, and he's got up from the canvas multiple times. It was multiple times. Whether you want to talk about Jack Reese's counting or not, he's got up off the canvas and shown that he can take the dig. He's also shown throughout his career that he can adapt in fights and in styles, preparing for fights. We've seen him be fast, agile on his feet. Take the Wilder fights as your archetype for this point, or the illustration for this point. He's fought and boxed Wilder and beat him for many people in my eyes. He did beat him on that night. And he's changed up his style and become a front forward, all action fighter looking to force the knockout under Sugar Hill to great success. He's also been someone who's had something where, like, look, a lot of people will say, look, he should have lost that fight, but the fight went on against Otto Wallin. He was under great adversity, not in the form of actual kind of offense, but in terms of what was going on with him. And he was able to keep composure in those moments, put under immense pressure to adapt and get the victory on that night. So those are kind of things that I look for in machinations of thinking about what Oleksandr Usyk can bring to him. Now, for me, Oleksandr Usyk, and let's not forget as well, I've got to make mention, I know everyone's mentioned this, but let's make mention the size of Fury as well too, and the kind of overall factor of him being that bigger guy who could possibly lean over Usyk and really kind of tire him out before Usyk even gets going. But the strengths of Usyk is, like, he's not shown any signs of slowing down. I think he's a couple of years older. For him to have kept the style of fighting that he's kept on throughout his career at his age as well, and not kind of shown any kind of gaps or weakness, is something to behold. And that's something that Fury hasn't done so far. We'll see if Fury goes back to being light on his feet and looking to outbox Usyk. I doubt it. I think he'll keep the style. But there are question marks to say, can Fury go back to that? Usyk hasn't needed to change his style because Usyk has so many different adaptations or different strengths to him, and he's shown no real kind of any real kind of close rival. I think maybe, what was it? The Gassiev fight was probably the closest. Breedis. My apologies. Breedis fight was probably the closest, and Breedis is a top-notch operator as well. It's just whether Usyk has another couple of adaptations, another couple of little skills in his game to kind of counteract the physical side of it. I think he does. I think he does have that little bit of agility. We'll see if he can keep it as he grows older. And he does have a good whack on him as well too. The thing that I note about when I watch Usyk, and I'll close up with this point, is he is one of the most accurate fighters I've ever seen. He doesn't need to waste punches in his performances. He lands when he throws. He lands, and he knows what he's throwing. I think that might be the key in this fight. Not that Fury doesn't know that. That's one of Usyk's main strengths that I'd highlight.
So Marvelous Marley Mar says, I'll buy the fight and I'm in the US. Well, that on its own won't make it profitable, but let's hope there's many like you. We've already read that one from Chris. Lucan says, Fury should have 3 losses on his record. Forget this best heavyweight of his generation business. 3? Not sure which ones he's referring to there. Obviously, McDermott is the one that's most often cited, but I'm not sure what the other ones are. Michael Fulton says, will Fury get the credit for beating Usyk? In my opinion, there'll be plenty of excuses made for Usyk and by Usyk's team. I mean, regardless of excuses, the fact that he's so much naturally a smaller man, I think is a built-in excuse, isn't it? Or a reason. It's a built-in reason why, and it's one of the biggest reasons why he's the underdog. S. Clayton, could it be that elusive Simon Clayton, says Fury only took the fight after seeing weakness in Usyk's recent fight with Dubois. That could be true. I don't know. I mean, I think you could find weaknesses in Usyk from other fights, maybe not as glaring as against Dubois. And if you judge that shot was a genuine low blow, then it's not a weakness, is it? So I'm not sure how true that is. Where are we going? Fury's undefeated. Chris says, more UK fans will buy Usyk than they will Fury. That's how bad Fury has damaged his legacy. Chris, you have already admitted you hate him, so I'm not sure how much we can take that seriously. AG says Fury and Usyk are giving us undisputed, 2 true champions. Unlike AJ and Wilder, who talked about it for years and didn't deliver. I think the fighters themselves really want that fight. I think it is just a case of the Saudi power dynamic changing and benefiting one set of fighters and not the other set. You know, there's only so much money to go around from the Saudi royal family. Now, granted, it's a lot of money, but they're only going to put a certain amount of it into boxing, and that means one big heavyweight fight, it turns out, not 2. Chris, just caning Fury a bit more. D-Boy says Fury KO by body shot. I think that's based on the stuff with Dubois. I mean, I think there are issues with Usyk and body shots just because he was showing out from the borderline shots from the very start of that fight with Dubois. So even though I'm not saying I saw him hurt by a legit body shot necessarily, he's clearly concerned about the work downstairs from his opponent. I do favour Fury in this fight, and quite heavily, to be fair. That doesn't mean I think he's going to destroy Usyk and get him out of there early. But I just think a lot of the things that Usyk has as advantages over a lot of other fighters that he's gone against so far, he won't have against Fury. So yeah, he's got fast hands and fast feet. So's Fury, maybe not quite as fast, but he can almost match that speed. Usyk's good at darting in and out and being elusive. So's Fury. Usyk's good at using his southpaw stance to his advantage. Fury's a switch hitter. He could combat him southpaw versus southpaw. I wouldn't recommend it, but he can also fight orthodox against southpaws. We've seen him have success. So, someone earlier in the chat, I think it was Eden V, talked about Fury struggling with Otto Wallin and John McDermott, but they were very different styles. Technically adept, relatively aggressive, good jabs, long fighters, like to keep it long, attacking bunches, rough at times, particularly with Wallin, although McDermott could mix it up a bit as well. That's not Usyk's style. Now, I'm not saying that's the only style that can give Fury trouble, but then Steve Cunningham had a similar style to that as well, albeit a smaller man. And he gave Fury problems by, fast combinations on the front foot, roughing him up at times as well. So I think if Fury struggles with anything, it is that. It's negating his speed and distance and time to think and to put on a bit of a show. When you give Fury room to work, then you've got a problem. Now, Usyk can close the gap, but it's a similar challenge to that faced by David Haye, a very explosive fighter, against Vladimir Klitschko all those years ago. It's closing the gap and not taking any punishment as you do so, and then making your exit out of range and not taking any punishment in doing so. And against someone like Tyson Fury and against Klitschko for Haye, that doesn't just mean getting caught by big long shots on the way in or the way out. It also means not getting claimed, wrestled, grabbed, leant on. All those things are big risks against a much bigger, heavier man who knows how to maul and wrestle. And Fury's only going to brush up on those techniques against Ngannou, you've got to think. And he won't be as good at it as Ngannou. But, the thing is, it's such a risky fight for him compared to Fury. Fury can afford to let Usyk take a step inside because he can take a half step back and still be the one that lands. He can afford maybe even to take a clean shot from Usyk because although Usyk is a big puncher at a certain level, that Fury has got confidence from taking those big shots against Wilder, who is a bigger puncher than Usyk. So it's a much riskier fight because every time Usyk tries to get into range to land combinations, he's got a risk taking a big shot from a full-grown heavyweight. Fury might not be the biggest single punch hitter in the division, but he's still a big 20-stone man. So yeah, Usyk's going to be taking a risk for pretty much every minute of the fight, or at least every minute he decides to attack and try and land his own work. Whereas Fury can afford to be a bit more circumspect. Everything, the pressure, just because of the size they are, the styles they are, the unsaid pressure, or I'm saying it now, is on Usyk to make the fight, to be the one taking Fury's title rather than Fury being the one forced to take his belts away from Usyk. So I can't see a game plan where Usyk wins enough rounds to take the fight. And I think it could go to points. I think they're both very high-level operators. Usyk especially, I'd say his boxing IQ, his technical ability exceeds that of Fury. If it was pound for pound, I'd probably rate Usyk higher. And even if he loses this fight to Tyson Fury, I'd still have Usyk high up in the pound-for-pound rankings because of everything he achieved at cruiserweight and then coming up to heavyweight to beat Joshua twice. That's impressive in itself. But I think at heavyweight, where size does matter and there is going to be a big disparity, I fancy Fury quite strongly to come out on top.
Yeah, Danny.
Just look at some of the... Oh, God,
whilst you're looking, Danny, I was just saying you're making a very compelling case for going with Fury, and a lot of people in the audience are saying the same thing, and maybe only seeing Usyk's way to victory via points. Look, it's going to be a tough task for Oleksandr Usyk. That's obviously the case here with what you've said just previously. But I wonder how much of a factor.
Oh, I think we've lost Ayman for a second there. Don't know if you guys at home can hear him, but I'm not able to anymore. So I'll just go through some of your chats while we're waiting. I think Ayman's connection's frozen, hopefully temporarily. Maybe it's that lightning again. Lightning in a bottle.
You got me now?
Where are we? So, yeah, I was up to D-Boy, wasn't I? So Jack Dutton says, did the Dubois fight show that body shots are Usyk's weak point? Will Fury target the body? Kind of covered that, but it's whether you think those shots are legitimate. I think it's more that I think it has shown that it might be his weak point because of Usyk's concern over the borderline shots. Chris says, Fury's whole style is about pressure now. He's never going to change back. That's not hate, it's an observation, although I do hate him for other reasons. I'm not sure that he won't change back. I don't think it's about changing back. I think it's about employing a style or at least adding nuances to the existing style that work for the specific opponent. I don't think Sugar Hill can only coach a fighter to be constant pressure. I think, Sugar Hill comes from that Kronk school under his uncle Emmanuel Stewart, who worked with Vladimir Klitschko for years and, yes, did make him more aggressive, but also didn't make him a pressure fighter necessarily, not all the time. He was able to sit back, use that long jab, use that long left hook. So I don't think it's impossible to think that Fury can employ a similar style against Usyk. Ayman, I know you're back now. I will come to you in a second. I just want to get through these chats now. I've worked up ahead of steam. Michael Fulton says, do you see Fury standing in the middle of the ring and boxing Usyk? In my opinion, I don't see the weight of Fury being a factor as such. The height and jab will be key for Fury. I think the weight will be a factor once he starts claiming Usyk inside and leaning on in the same way that Chisora did against Usyk, but he's a much bigger man than Chisora. Blunt says, I think Fury wins a fairly boring fight, similar to the Klitschko fight. I agree, maybe not quite as close, in my view. Pajkic, Usyk has busy style. Do you think if he was less busy, he'd be less likely to get winded by well-timed body shots? Yeah, possibly. Maybe he is too busy. Maybe he doesn't need to be quite as busy as he is, especially against opponents who've got a significantly lighter work rate than he's got. Who else? Desmond McGee, we haven't heard from him yet today. He says Usyk will destroy Tyson Fury. He actually says destroy, but I'm assuming he means destroy. He's scared to lose. Well, surely if he has signed for this fight, he's not scared to lose, or he doesn't agree that Usyk will destroy him, which wouldn't be a surprise. Desmond McGee then says Tyson Fury is finished. Chris, I think we found your alt account, or at least one of them. How Not to Play says he has fallen asleep talking about Fury. That's talking about Ayman's screen freezing briefly. John Banks, maybe it's Jonathan Banks, says plenty of time for it not to happen. That's it. John, be optimistic. Who else? Jack Dutton says, if Fury could survive those wars with Wilder, I think there's almost no chance Usyk will stop Fury. I'm inclined to agree. Ayman, what do you think from what you've heard from me and from the chat?
No, yeah, look, chat makes a compelling case. You make a compelling case. I wonder how much of a play a strong referee will make in this fight. Let's not forget clinching and holding. These aren't things that you're supposed to be getting away with in fights. And will a strong ref be looking to, separate them in the clinches, potentially deduct points from whoever's looking to clinch in those moments in the fight and take advantage of them? Let's not fail to mention here either, Usyk is incredible in those moments. He is very accomplished in those moments, to the degree where, at least I believe, Anti Joshua brought in a wrestling coach to help kind of teach him or help give him show him the ropes on how to combat against Usyk does so well in those clinches in those moments. He's a tough, strong, big guy himself. I don't think he can afford to keep pushing back Tyson Fury too much, because that will definitely exhaust him. But those if you're talking about actual clinching and moments, Usyk might end up getting the upper hand of that. What might be a decent test actually is in the Fury and Ngannou fight. In those moments, how does Fury come back? Ngannou in the clinch, who will no doubt be better than Fury in those moments. Let's see what Fury can provide to him in terms of an antidote to that if those moments do happen and Fury doesn't blast him out of there. That's a good little barometer for those moments. But look, I just think I can see this being the type of fight where Fury does take the approach that he did against Klitschko and make this very boring, make this a very a caution-led approach, not for fear of what is coming back from him in terms of how Usyk fights, but more just in the case of keeping and racking up the points in the bag because he has so much reach and height over him that he can make this as easy as he wants in theory because of those physical advantages. And that's what I think it will play out. It'll be, like you said, up to Oleksandr Usyk to shorten that gap, which he can do as well. I think this will be the fight where we'll see Fury think the most that he's ever thought because of Usyk in fights at the highest level has put fighters in positions where they're thinking and overthinking, biting and reacting to moments where he's not even throwing. And that pressure, we've seen Fury in moments of big pressure, and he's passed all tests so far. But can he pass this test where I think skill for skill, Usyk is probably the better fighter. But what Fury does so well, Usyk might not be able to combat on the night.
And going back to the chat, Chris says Fury hasn't boxed since Wilder won. I take issue with that. I think he boxed a bit against Dillian Whyte. And also, Wilder won, right? So he goes into Wilder 2, employs a new aggressive pressure style, absolutely destroys him. You're going to do that in the third fight, aren't you? And against Derek Chisora, I mean, you know, there wasn't a lot coming back. Fury knew he had his number. He gave his mate a payday. He was always going to come forward. And, you know, there was nothing to be concerned about. I don't think he'll try and pressure Usyk as much as others are saying. I think Usyk's very fast on his feet and fast with his hands. I don't think exchanging with him is necessarily the right strategy, especially early on in the fight. But we shall see. Takuro Man 91 says, Usyk by decision or KO. Usyk has a broader skill set. Fury defense isn't that great. He has great footwork, but I don't know. The more active fighter will win. I'll take your point. I mean, you know, that video against, was it Tom Schwartz, where he avoided about, no, I'm joking. I'm not going to use that as an example of Fury's defensive prowess. But I think his defense is decent. But I just think his length and his footwork are his defense in this fight. And I think he knows how to use those to his advantage. Clayton says, 3 defeats for Fury. I'd guess McDermott, Wallin, Wilder. I mean, which Wilder fight? The first one. I mean, it was a draw officially, but most people seem to think Fury did enough to win. McDermott, certainly. Wallin, I don't think that was a very close fight. I think it was a hard and grueling fight. I don't think it was a close fight on the cards for me, not on my card. Pajkic, again, says, how much do you think Fury owes a lot of money to nefarious characters to why he's milked the fans these last few fights? Wow, everyone's coming out as a Fury hater now. And are rumours Hennessy still gets paid from Fury purses true? I'm not sure. Next time I see Mick Hennessy, I'll ask him. He won't tell me, but I'll ask him just so I can come back on the chat and say I did. Blunt says, if Usyk is so good in the clinch, what happened in the Chisora fight? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I think he did struggle with the greater size and inside prowess of Chisora, and I think Fury is even better at that side of the game. A lot of it will depend on the referee as well and how much they're willing to let Fury get away with. If you have someone like Joe Cortez in Mayweather Hatton, then it could be a tough night for Fury, because if he's getting split all the time, and then as soon as the fighters have broken apart and the referee says box on, Usyk could be straight in there with a 2-punch combination and back out again. So, you know, an officious referee could be a big advantage for Usyk.